Welcome, college basketball fans, to another edition of the College Pride Press podcast. My name is Brad Kreppel, and as always, I am your Sunday night podcast host. Brett Siegel is actually traveling back to school today, so he's not going to be able to be joining me, but we've got two great guests, anyways. Chris Garcia and Ryan Barry are here to join me and talk a little bit about what's going on in the past couple weeks in college basketball. I know we did not have a podcast the past 2 weeks as we had Christmas and New Year's, so it's been pretty crazy. But we're happy to be back here. We're going to try to break down as much as we missed in the next hour. So we'll let Chris and Ryan introduce themselves a little bit. I know you guys have been on before, but just to reintroduce yourself, start off with Chris.
Uh, Chris Garcia, glad to be back. Had a fun Christmas break. I'm glad to be back on the pod.
All right. I love it. Ryan, what's going on with you?
Hey guys, Ryan Barry back. Glad to be back on the podcast. I'm representing Purdue University. Boiler up, big win today. So happy to get back into the swing of things.
Big win for Purdue, and we're going to break that down in just a little bit. But I want to, as always, we're going to start off with a couple headlines here. And first and foremost, we are going to talk about Coach K. He's got a back issue that he had to have surgery on Friday, so we wish him all the best. But I want to talk a little bit about his absence and what that means for this Duke team that has more talent than anyone in the country. But, they haven't really put it all together with injuries and suspensions and everything. So what do you guys think about Coach K's absence? What's this team going to be doing under Jeff Capel? We'll start off with Ryan.
Well, this is clearly another hindrance to Duke's season. And this, like you mentioned, Brad, is a team with a ridiculous amount of talent, more so really than any other program could even dream about having. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think Duke will miss a beat with Coach K missing even a month. Is too talented, has too many great players. They have good freshmen and they have good veterans, go-to guys like Grayson Allen and Luke Kennard, who I think are very impressive. So, like I said, I don't think Duke will miss a beat here. I think they'll stay one of the teams to beat in the ACC. I think they'll keep rolling.
All right, Chris, what are your thoughts on this Duke team?
I like that, but I'm actually going opposite. I'm thinking of what happened to Syracuse last year with Jim Boeheim being gone. You saw they struggled. I think they went like 4 and 5 without him. And with Duke, they are having 2 back-to-back tough games. They're going against Florida State, which I think they'll lose, and then Louisville, I know they'll lose. So it's especially with all this drama with Grayson Allen. I forget who their associate head coach is at Duke, but it's going to be a lot to take in. Like you were saying, they are deep. All that talent, he's going to be like who to play, when to play. It's just different when you're not hearing Coach K's voice. And you saw it with Syracuse, and I really think that's going to happen again this year. They play versus Pittsburgh, they play versus Notre Dame, play versus Miami. All games that could be toss-up games if they lose to Florida State and to Louisville.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of split it down the middle. Jeff Capel did recruit a bunch of these guys, so that has to play into it. I think the players are going to want to play for him. But in terms of, strategy and, bringing it all together, there's a lot of mouths to feed offensively and, a lot of egos defensively that you're going to have to break through. Harry Giles is just getting his feet wet this season, so it's going to be tough. I think they're going to do okay, but I think, they are going to lose a couple toss-up games, especially in this brutal ACC schedule. All right, next up, we are going to stay with Duke a little bit because obviously everyone's talking about this Grayson Allen suspension that was indefinite, and it ended up being a 1-game suspension that Duke lost to Virginia Tech. And Allen is no longer the captain of the Duke team, so I know everyone's very concerned about who are the captains of this Duke team. So that's breaking news, but did you guys think this 1-game suspension was too much, too little, or just right? We'll start off with Chris.
I'm on the fence about it. I do think that he deserved at least 1 game. I don't know if you could call him more, 1 or 2 games. It's a problem that needs to be fixed. I see a lot of like D'Angelo Russell, like the kid is just reckless, like he was at Ohio State. it's time to grow up. Honestly, he has a lot of scouts eyeing him. He's definitely a favorite in the draft. Well for him, it's not looking well for Duke because they could have used him when they're going against that tough Virginia Tech team.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on the suspension?
I don't think I'm in the minority here when I say that I think the one game was a little bit soft on Coach K's part, especially for a repeat offender, to the tune of 3 times. Like you mentioned, Chris, this is clearly a big problem with Grayson Allen. Still clearly has not solved, and so when you break this down, it just keeps happening, and it's on Coach K to really be that mentor and that leader. And I thought he got it right originally when the headline was indefinite suspension. I was quite disappointed then when he returned last week after only missing 1 game. A quick side note to that game: I don't think Grayson Allen would have made a difference for that game. Virginia
Oh,
Tech was
absolutely, yeah.
the better team that day. So I think you guys both agreed. Virginia Tech outplayed Duke that day.
Great team,
Duke,
great coach team.
agreed. Moving forward for Duke, they're going to need Grayson Allen, and championship is definitely something that will ring true with him, and definitely make him want to be better, because that is something that these kids, these college players, they appreciate that. They enjoy being the captain of their team. So I think Grayson will clean up his act a little bit, and I think he's going to be one of the Duke's key players going forward.
Yeah, I think this is very tough because technically this is the first time that he got caught. The other times there was no technical fouls for the trip. So this was the first time that he got caught. And I think that's kind of what the issue stems from is if last year he got teed up and people gave him a 1 game suspension, it wouldn't have been a big deal. And he did it again. I don't think it would have been 1 game, but because, technically it is the first time that he's been caught tripping, the 1 game suspension, blah, I do think Coach K's back injury did have part to play in it because he didn't want Jeff Capel to have to deal with this on top of taking over this Duke team. So I think that kind of played into it. But it's clearly it didn't solve the problem. A 1 game suspension and everyone talking about it because as we're going to talk about a little bit later in their most recent game, he was playing defense and somebody set a pick on him and it looked like he was trying to trip the guy again. So whether he was or not, that we'll talk about in a little bit, but clearly the issue isn't solved here. So I think the whole world is kind of watching to see if he's going to trip somebody again and kind of hoping, all the Duke haters are hoping that he's going to trip somebody. So it'll definitely be a storyline to watch as the season goes on. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the game that most intrigued you guys, the past week or so. You can expand a little bit because we haven't had a pod since then. So what game most intrigued you? We'll start off with Ryan.
Brad, I'm gonna say the Wisconsin versus Indiana game, which was in Assembly Hall on Tuesday. This is a game that I picked Indiana to win, and I thought they would win. Especially coming off 2 losses against Nebraska and Louisville. I thought Blackman would be better in that game. I thought Thomas Bryant would start to pick it up a little bit in that game. But just kind of more of the same for the Hoosiers. They're clearly struggling. I know they had a good game yesterday, but before the Illinois game, they were really struggling. And Assembly Hall is one of the toughest places to play in all of college basketball. I really thought they would get it done there. So I'm not sure really what to make of the Hoosiers right now.
Yeah, that definitely was an intriguing game, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But Chris, I want to hear what you have to say.
I know we're talking about it a little later, but it's very fresh in my mind. I was watching the New Mexico Nevada game, and oh my goodness, we just came out of the SFA game. We're just talking. We're paying no mind. Just look at the score. We're just looking at other scores. We're just watching the game because we played versus New Mexico earlier in the year, so we just wanted to see how they were doing. And man, we just looked at the stat line. This guy's eating on the team. I think it was number 24. And my gosh, 6 threes in the last 6 minutes of play. It's all just, oh my gosh, it was just surreal. And it's hard to play over there in New Mexico. That place gets loud. It's small. People love it over there. This is props to Nevada for sure.
Yeah, Jordan Caroline had 45 points and shot 5 of 8 from 3. Yep. That is absolutely insane. That definitely is a game we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I want to
Mm.
kind of expand on what Ryan was saying with Indiana, Wisconsin, and I know Ryan Dull, camp writer for CPP. He was all up in arms over the past couple games, but I'm not too concerned. If you would have told me we lost to Wisconsin and Louisville in this 2 game stretch, I wouldn't have been that surprised. Those are both very good teams. Wisconsin's very experienced, so being an Assembly Hall did not have the students in it, so it's a completely different atmosphere with an experienced team. So I think that was kind of even, and in those 2 games, those don't shock me. It's the Nebraska game that started spewing out everything of all these Indiana fans. So if they would have won that game, I don't think the 2 game losing streak would have been that big of a deal with Wisconsin and Louisville. But because Nebraska, it kind of put a lot of pressure onto the players for those next games, which didn't end up very well. So that was definitely kind of like compacted, but that Indiana Wisconsin game was a pretty good one to watch. I am going to say that most interesting game was North Carolina Georgia Tech, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. But this game happened last Saturday, and this was a fantastic game. Georgia Tech, I kind of poo-pooed them in the ACC preview podcast, as everyone else did, but John Pastner put together a solid effort and was able to beat North Carolina, who I'm very high on. So that was a game that intrigued me. All right, next up, we were going to talk about biggest surprise of the week, and I'm pretty sure my surprise would be Georgia Tech, North Carolina. So I will just leave that there. We'll go to Chris. What was your biggest surprise?
I'm actually going to go with today's game, North Carolina State. I really thought that would be a game to watch, and I'm at Subway, I'm about to order my sandwich. I just have the game on my phone, and I look at the score of the game, beat by 30 in the first half, and I was point guard's name, Dennis
Dennis
Scott,
Smith Jr.
Dennis Smith. Yes, that kid is going to be a great NBA guard, and I really wanted to see that matchup with him and the North Carolina guard because the whole team's been talking about it, and then dude just played awful, and that's not going to look good for the NBA scouts. He's still going to be a high lottery pick, but I really expected a lot more in NC State, and I mean, I picked North Carolina to be the first number 1 seed, so it wasn't no surprise how they dominated. But to a team like NC State, wow.
I mean, Dennis Smith still had 11 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, but he did have 6 turnovers. So
Yeah,
that
the
was
turnovers is
interesting. But North Carolina kind of stuck it to him. All right, Ryan, what was the biggest surprise for you?
I have to give a shout out to what's going on down in Tallahassee, Florida, and talk about the Florida State Seminoles for a little bit. They started off last week a slate of 6 straight ranked teams in that minefield that is the ACC this year. They went in to Virginia and beat the Cavaliers, and that is one of the toughest things to do in all of college basketball. And then they did not suffer a hangover with the next game. They defeated Virginia Tech on their home floor in Tallahassee, excuse me. Florida State is a team that I was not as high on as most going into this season. Top 10 ranking now, and we're going to see what they're made of Tuesday against Duke.
Yeah, that's definitely a great game. Florida State just been on a hell of a run, and I don't think many people saw that coming. All right, next up, we are going to we're going to recap the games of the week, the past couple weeks, and we're going to start off in the Big East with Villanova Butler. Villanova went into Hinkle Fieldhouse and was not undefeated as they walked out. Butler fans stormed the court. Huge game for Butler. What were your reactions to that game? We'll start off with Ryan.
I just don't think you can say enough about the Butler program. Really, they did not miss a beat going from Brad Stevens then to what was the coach in the middle? Coach Miller, I believe it was, and then now to Chris Holtman. Get done, and it starts with protecting their home court against number 1 Villanova. Their front court really got it done, and their guards were good enough to slow down Brunson and Hart, and that's why Butler was able to win.
All right, Chris, what were your thoughts on this game?
Butler's a very well-coached team. They've always been a well-coached team. Very hard place to play at. Since you went to Butler, so I'll go Villanova. Villanova, probably one of the most stable teams in the country, if not the most stable team, most consistent team. I knew they weren't going to go undefeated the whole year. I was just kind of looking at the schedule to see who they would probably drop to. Butler was one I didn't really think it happened, but I wasn't shocked when it happened. I don't think much of the game. Of course, it's very hard to go undefeated. I think what Coach Wright's going to do is assemble his team, talk it over, talk with Josh Hart. Of course, that's a great leader on that team. I really don't see any problems going forward with this team. They're going to be fine.
The one thing that I thought about this game was how good Butler was without having a standout performance. And when Butler beat Indiana, Keelan Martin had a huge game and was knocking down ridiculous 3-point shots, and that kind of led to that big win. But against this game against Villanova, they didn't have a player score over 13 points. They had two players and 13 points, but they didn't have anyone over that, which is very impressive to knock off a Villanova team that is undefeated and hasn't lost in like all these days. I don't have the exact stat, but that streak's over now, so it doesn't really matter. Great win for Butler. I thought the rushing of the court, I thought that I was okay with that. Big East needs to loosen up on those fines a little bit. Let the students have some fun. All right, next game we're going to talk about is Duke Virginia Tech, and Duke without Grayson Allen went into Virginia Tech and just got shellacked. And this was not even a game. Virginia Tech stuck it to them. What were your instant reactions on this, Chris Garcia?
Buzz Williams is no doubt probably my favorite coach in college basketball. This guy has gone from the system as a manager all the way to a head coach. This guy really knows how to connect with his players. And I've been telling people Virginia Tech's going to be nice. And this is just another great example of the team. I really didn't think this would happen. I thought it would be Duke winning probably like 6-7, even without Grayson Allen. And had me wrong. Virginia Tech is a very good team. I really like them going forward. I think they're going to be pretty nice going into the tournament. They have a lot of problems to solve. It's going to be even more problems with Coach K being out. But congrats with Virginia Tech.
I bought the Buzz Williams stock at the beginning of last year, and boy, it's paying off. I'm loving it right now. Ryan, what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, you guys are going the Buzz Williams route, so I'll hit home that point as well. Program defining when that Buzz Williams can hang his hat on for this Virginia Tech program after he came over from Marquette. He really hadn't had that one game that he announced himself on the national stage, but this was that win for his program, for his team. And it wasn't close. That's the biggest thing about this game. Duke got its bell rung at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, that's right. Luke Kennard did have 34 points. I will mention that. But big game for Virginia Tech, something to build on for Buzz Williams, even though, this is going to be an inconsistent team. They lost their 2 games after that. But, it's good to have that Duke win in their back pocket for the rest of the season. All right, UNC Georgia Tech, as I mentioned earlier. Georgia Tech is horrible. John Pastner, horrible coach. You can at me on that one, but they did beat UNC. Very good UNC team. Joel Berry, lots of talent coming back from the runners-up. What were your thoughts on this game? We'll go off with Ryan first.
I just thought this was a fluky game. Georgia Tech was pumped up to welcome a national finalist into their gym. Josh Pastner was excited for one of his first ACC games, and North Carolina really just wasn't ready to play. What happens on the road in conference play, especially in the ACC? If you're not ready to play, you can lose to any team in any gym. Really, that's my takeaway. I think this was just kind of a fluke, and it'll be a learning experience for the Tar Heels going forward. They need to be ready to play night in, night out in the ACC.
All right, Chris.
Completely agree. Completely agree. You cannot. You said put the words out there out of my mouth. And it's just North Carolina did not want to be there at all that night. They were just other things on their mind. And Georgia Tech is hungry for the season to go somewhere that their way. Yeah, this win is definitely going to be motivation going towards the rest of the schedule. I do disagree with you, Brad. I kind of like this team. I don't know about the coach, but I do like the team. I don't know if they're going to be good, but I think they'll be good in like 1-2 years.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't think they're going to be that good. John Pastner is going to find a way to screw up this team. So I'll
I'll
be
believe
sure
when
to
I
mention
see it.
that. I'll be sure to mention on Twitter once that happens. All
All
right.
right.
And last game, this is absolutely crazy. If you haven't seen it, you should. I'll retweet the highlights on the CPP account. But New Mexico, Nevada. New Mexico is up like 14 or 15 points with like a minute and a half left, and Nevada just went to work, knocking down threes, ridiculous shots. They got a couple steals, and New Mexico helped them out by missing a bunch of free throws. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so absolutely ridiculous game. Banked in a three to send it to overtime, and then they banked in another three to win it at the buzzer. Absolute insane game. What were your guys' thoughts on this? If you were watching it live, I mean, I know Chris was keeping an eye on it, but this is just absolutely insane. Chris, what were your thoughts?
This is why I love basketball, and this is why you never give up because anything can happen. I remember the night before I was watching the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors. Same exact thing happened. Grizzlies did not give up. They go into overtime, they take it, and they just demolish. A little different ending with this game, how it goes to the very last shot. This is why I love basketball. This is why I love sports. You never give up. You don't go home to a fat lady sings. Love it.
Oh my God, coach talk from Chris Garcia. All right, Ryan, what were your thoughts on this game?
I actually didn't see the highlights until this morning, but man, what an ending! And you just got to give credit to the visitors. They never gave up, and the pit is not an easy place to play. But Nevada went into New Mexico, and it looked like they were gonna come out the losers, but they got it done, and they sent it in overtime, and um, really that seeing those highlights kind of brought me back to March Madness of last year. Purdue's first round exit was not too exciting, but the Northern Iowa game it brought me back to that one. So at least I had a decent memory there.
Yes, exactly. The Northern Iowa game. Seth Davis had Northern Iowa with a Sharpie on it. They coughed up that game. This game, I think the Northern Iowa game, Northern Iowa kind of choked it up. Like they had a bunch of turnovers, but this game, New Mexico like got the ball and they just missed free throws, and they didn't miss that many. I mean, there was only one time when they had an empty trip, I think, but still they missed free throws, but they didn't have tons of turnovers. But just an incredible game. College basketball, just happens, and I love it. I love it. All right, next we're gonna do buy or sell as we usually do. I'm gonna give each one of you guys a buy or sell, and I want to know what your thoughts are on it. And we will start with Chris Garcia. Buy or sell? Duke will fall out of the top 10 without Coach K.
Absolutely, they will. They are going against a Florida State team, which I've seen no one be able to guard that big guy from Florida State. That is the biggest guy I've ever seen put on a college uniform. That was 7'2", like two something, and that guy is humongous. No one can guard that man. The only guy taller in college basketball is that Taco Falls guy. It's crazy. No one's gonna be able to match up with that guy. Just feed him in the post, give it to him. And once they lose that game, they're going up against a Louisville team, which has been consistently good for forever. Honestly, that team is well coached. They will lose that game as well. And then they got a tough Miami squad. Those two losses will get them out of the top 10. So I'm buying on this.
All right, Ryan, buy or sell? Minnesota or Nebraska are gonna make the tournament, the NCAA tournament.
I'm gonna buy on Minnesota. I like this
Yeah.
team. I was critical of Coach Richard Pitino. His program appeared to be a dumpster fire going into the season, but they own a few solid wins now. They won on the road at Purdue, not an easy place to win, and then followed that up with another win at at Northwestern. Nate Mason is playing like one of the very best guards in the country, not only the Big Ten, but this Minnesota team is very good and they can win anywhere. Nebraska, on the other hand,
Yeah,
I just think they dug too big of a hole early on. I don't think they'll be able to dig their way out of it. I think they will return to earth pretty soon, if not this week. I'm going to sell on Nebraska.
yeah, I agree with you. I think Minnesota's got some talent. Amir Coffey is an absolute animal. Nebraska, good wins, but I think, like I said before, kind of fluky. So we'll have to see what goes forward there. All right, now I'm going to take over Brett's segment because Brett's not here, obviously. So we're going to pick a couple of games going forward. We're going to have a game for each day of the week up until the game day podcast. We'll pick the weekend games as they usually do. So starting off on Monday, St. John's goes into Georgetown. St. John's a very tough team. They already knocked off Butler. Georgetown, they've shown they can be a really good team. They've also shown that they can, play way below their talent level. What are your thoughts on this game? Ryan, we'll start with you.
I'm going to take Georgetown at home. I know St. John's did beat Butler. I think that was kind of another fluky thing on the road for Butler to have lost that game. Georgetown is not having the year that they would like, but I think they'll get it done at home. St. John's is really not that good of a team.
All right, Chris, what are your thoughts?
It hurts me. It really does hurt me to say this because I am a Cuse fan and I'm from Queens. Family went to St. John's, but St. John's is not where I want them to be right now. They're second year with Chris Mullen. He doesn't really have his guys there. And they're kind of performing where they should be. I mean, Butler really, really, really shocked me. And I really don't want to give anything good to Georgetown, but they're always a pretty solid team. They're at home. I'm going Georgetown.
All right, yeah, I'm going Georgetown too. I've been high on Georgetown all year, and I'm sticking with it. I've owned their stock. They got some great players: Rodney Pryor, Bradley Hayes, just name a few. I think they're going to be able to make some improvements and beat the St. John's team, and hopefully make a nice run into the Big East and the Big East tournament. All right, next up, Tuesday game, Duke against Florida State. I know Chris has already kind of picked this game, but we'll start off with Ryan here. What are your thoughts on this Duke-Florida State game?
I touched on Florida State earlier, and I really have to tip my hat to them. 6 straight ranked opponents, and they knocked off the first 2, Virginia and Virginia Tech. Dwayne Bacon is playing level. Coach Hamilton has his team playing at an extremely high level. Like I mentioned, they're on the verge of a top 10 ranking, and we're really going to see what they're made of this Tuesday. 2, I think Duke has the most talent of any team in the country. I'm taking the Blue Devils on the road.
All right, Chris, you gonna start arguing with Ryan here or what? I know you're gonna pick Florida State.
I'm definitely picking Florida State. Just like you said, Ryan, no one is touching Dwayne Bacon. That man is going here. And I really think he could be a top 10 pick this year in the draft. I mean, I think scouts are salivating over his play. I would love to have a guy like him on a team. Just a very skilled, very talented, really knows what he's doing with the ball. No one can stop their post. I'm going Florida State.
All right, I'm tiebreaker. I'm going Florida State here. Dwayne Bacon, Jonathan Isaac, talented players at home. Duke team going to be adjustment with Coach K not on the sidelines for the first game, so I'm going Florida State. All right, next game. Wednesday is going Big East. Butler against Creighton. 2 great teams, as we've discussed. Creighton just fell to Villanova, but Butler beat Villanova. Both these teams are very high ranked. What are your thoughts on this game? We'll start off with Chris.
This is really just a toss up, but I'm going for the upset. I'm going Creighton. That team, just you can always count on shooters being on that team for some reason. McDermott's a great coach. But no offense to Butler, but when you're at Creighton, it's gonna be a very tough game. I'm going Creighton.
All right, Ryan.
I'm going to say not so fast one more time. You have to like what Coach McDermott and Creighton are doing. But I think Andrew Travis will be the X factor for Butler. I think Butler will get it done on the road.
All right, I'm picking Creighton as well. Chris Garcia is having some good picks today. I'm going to go along with him. Creighton at home, great home environment, and I think they're going to have their 2 guards. Patton and Marcus Foster are going to have huge games. So I think that the Butler guards aren't aren't going to be able to slow them down at all. I'm going Creighton, and it's going to be a big win for them in the Big East. All right, Thursday, Notre Dame goes all the way down to South Beach to play Miami. Big ACC matchup. Notre Dame has kind of quietly had a really good season thus far, going under the radar in the ACC. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this game?
You're definitely right, Brad, when you say that Notre Dame is under the radar in the ACC. They were projected to be the seventh in the preseason, and that just really shows you the depth of that conference. Like Notre Dame's guards, I think Pasturia and Farrell are very good players, and I think they're going to get it done. Notre Dame has a lot of playmakers. I think they'll be too much for Miami, even at Miami.
All right, Chris.
We can agree on one. I'm gonna go Notre Dame. I'm exactly with you. I really did not think Notre Dame would be good and like competitive this year. They stuck up on me. They stuck up on everyone really. Uh, Miami's a great squad, but I think what Notre Dame's doing over there, they're gonna bring it home in Florida.
All right, I'm going against the grain here. Not a lot of agreeing this week. That's how good the games are. Miami at home. Bruce Brown's going to have a huge game, but I also think that Notre Dame plays too much hero ball with Matt Farrell at times late in the second half. I think that's going to catch up to them in this game, and so I'm going with Miami. Matt Farrell, you need to distribute, not shoot. Keep that in mind. And if they win this game, I'm sure I'll get a ton of crap about it next podcast, but that's all right. All right, and we're going to do a special bonus because I just couldn't resist. The Baylor against West Virginia game is this week as well, and Baylor's going to West Virginia. What are your thoughts on that game? Top 10, maybe even top 5, depending on the rankings tomorrow. Matchup should be a great one of the Big 12. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, Baylor could very well be the number one team when this game tips off. With a few of the top couple of teams losing this week. I think West Virginia will get it done at home, though. I think their havoc style, their press defense will get it done. Morgantown is a very tough place to play, so I don't think West Virginia will lose this game at home.
All right, Chris.
Pains me. Another one that pains me to say. I'm not the biggest Baylor fan. They are playing some of the best basketball I've seen in my years of watching college basketball. They have a great coach over there, West Virginia, but I have to go Baylor. They're going to be the number one team, but they're going to get knocked off soon. Just remember what I said. They will get knocked off.
All right, I'm going with West Virginia as well. Baylor did not look as sharp in their last game. Manu Lecomte, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. He's going to have an absolutely phenomenal game to break this West Virginia press and get that offense kind of squared away. But I'm still picking West Virginia. Go Mountaineers. Bob Huggins, very good coach. Should be a great game. All right, so that wraps up this edition of the College Pride Press podcast. We are going to go around one more time and do a little final thoughts, closing remarks. So, Chris, we'll start off with you. And if you have any hot takes, this is when you need to get them out because we haven't had you on the podcast for a while, so I think we're due for some.
Malik Newman, where are you at?
Malik Newman. For those of you new to the podcast, last offseason, we were talking about whether Malik Newman was going to go back to school or go to the NBA draft, and Chris went out on a limb and said he was going to transfer, and now Malik Newman's sitting out a year to play Kansas next year. So you got to listen to Chris when he talks.
Oh, man. Hot takes. What do I got here? I'm really just dry today. I really think the only hot thing I have is Duke's going to be on a little losing skid, and I feel like I'm the only one on this because everyone just loves their Duke basketball. But without Coach K, I saw it with Syracuse. I didn't think Syracuse would lose the games. You saw that squad last year. That was a very good team. But I agree with Ryan. They have the most talent of any college basketball team. But it is Coach K. And when you do not have Coach K out there on the bench screaming at you, with all this Grayson Allen talk, going against two good teams, come on now. Come on. You know what? And let Grayson Allen do that tripping stuff in the NBA. But let's see if he has a pretty face after that.
Oh my! All right. Wait, before we get to Ryan's final thoughts, a quick question from me: what are your thoughts on the Hamidou Diallo thing? I'm sure we'll have Nick Schwartz on a podcast to talk about this, but what are your thoughts? He's going to sit out the semester at Kentucky, but practice there, but he might go to the draft. What are your thoughts?
I would expect him.
Oh, you
All
got
right,
it. Yeah, yeah, no,
all
you're
right.
good.
I would expect him to sit out this semester and then probably test the NBA draft waters. I don't think he would get a whole lot of interest. I don't think he would receive an invitation to the NBA draft combine. So I think he'll end up playing as a redshirt freshman at Kentucky next season. I wouldn't expect him to be in Lexington past that season, though. Um, it'll be interesting to see, like every freshman class that enters the University of Kentucky, in terms of the logjam at backcourt. I wonder how many minutes he'll get at guard next season. With all of the five-star talent at every position, I would expect him to go pro after next season.
All right, Chris, any quick remarks?
I completely agree with how the NBA set up the draft combine and how you can just go and see where you would be and you talk to scouts, and the waiting period is longer now, so you can go and really see what you're worth and then come back. Your decision, it takes longer now. I think that's exactly what he'll do. He'll sit out, he'll play next year, see what he's worth, and know what he needs to work on. Play next year. Like I don't really know how many minutes he's gonna play. It all depends who leaves, who stays.
Yeah, I actually think he's going to go in the draft. Just watching those videos, I think he's going to be really good. I've never seen him play other than like highlight videos, but I actually think he's going to go in the draft. All right, Ryan. Sorry. Back to your closing remark. Anything you'd like to close up with?
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Purdue just really quickly. The Boilermakers took care of business today at home versus Wisconsin, which put them back atop the Big Ten conference standings. Go to Madison this year, so their toughest road games left would appear to be Indiana and Michigan State, who also come to Mackey Arena this year for return home games for Purdue. I still like the Boilermakers to win the Big Ten. I think they're the most complete team, and I think they're the team that's kind of trending in the best direction, along with Wisconsin and Michigan State.
Yeah, Purdue with a huge win, beating Wisconsin and on any court is really a big deal. Wisconsin's a really good team, as I discussed earlier, but that's a big win for Purdue. And Swanigan really did not have that incredible of a game compared to what he's been doing. But it'll be very interesting to see Purdue's next couple of matchups. And the Big Ten's really not that good, so you have to avoid taking those bad losses like a team like Nebraska. So who's just better, watch out there. My closing remarks. We didn't really mention the Pac-12 that much, but the one team I do want to give a shout out to is Arizona. Not many people are talking about Arizona because Arizona doesn't have Lonzo Ball, which is great, good for UCLA. Whatever. Arizona's only lost 2 games, and those 2 games are to an undefeated Gonzaga team on a neutral court and a Butler team on a neutral court that just knocked off Villanova. Both of those teams are fantastic, Sweet 16 quality teams that they've lost to. Other than that, they beat a Texas A&M, Cal, Utah, Colorado. Arizona's playing really good basketball without Alonzo Trier, and they've had tons of injuries. So, heads up, Sean Miller. He's coaching a great season, and those guys are really playing well. This week is really nothing for Arizona. They play Arizona State at home. Ken Pom likes them 93%. But then next week they have USC and UCLA, 2 games in a row, both on the road, a Thursday, Saturday. So that is going to be a big week for Arizona. I'm sure we're going to talk about them next week on the podcast because that's going to be a huge week for them. But, just want to give the Wildcats a little shout out. They're playing good basketball. Not a lot of people are talking about them, so just want to mention them. And that wraps us up. Thanks to Ryan and Chris for joining me this week. Hopefully Brett will be back next week. I assume so, unless he's stuck in, his plane get delayed for another week. But that is not a possibility. So Brett will be back next week, and look forward to our Thursday game day podcast Thursday night with Nolan and Sean. Keep an eye out for that. It will be on iTunes and on collegepridepress.com. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day.